Well, very good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode number 65 of Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. I'm on the East Coast, and as always, from all the way the other side of the country, Mr. West Coast himself and the International Pop Overthrow Festival guru, my good friend David Bash. David, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good. I had to do my best radio voice there. I don't know why. It just hit me.
It's good. Yeah. It's good. I don't know why you're not working in radio full time right now.
Well, they tell me I've got the face for radio. I don't understand that.
Whoa, wait a minute. So, we have IPO San Francisco tomorrow. Lena and I will be driving up in the morning. It's probably going to be about a 7-hour drive or so. We usually leave at 9, which will get us there at about 4. Hey, Andy. Andy, did you get the IPO CDs yet? Because people outside of the UK, but in Europe, have been getting them. So if you didn't get it, then it's a different mailing system. Wow. Going to the UK. So let us know if you got it. In the meantime, so I'm really looking forward to IPO San Francisco for sure.
And where's that at? What venue?
That Hotel Utah, which is not yet. Jeez. Okay. Well, I have not heard from anyone else from the UK to whom I sent CDs. So,
hey, good news, Barry.
Yes, I know, Barry, and I'm waiting for it. It was mailed out to me yesterday, so I won't get it until I get back from San Francisco. But and then there's the other exciting thing. I was asked to introduce the Smithereens and the Malibus at their final LA show at Agoura Canyon on Sunday. Wow. Agoura Canyon Club, I should say. Awesome. So we have to really book it back from San Francisco to make that.
Well, that'd be great, though, man.
That's quite a New York phrase. Book it back. I don't hear anyone out here using that.
No. So you got quite a lot of things going on.
I do, and I've got this new Todd Rundgren Something Anything button-down shirt. Hi, Lisa. It just showed up today, so I figured I'd sport that. Oh yeah, watch check. This also came a few days ago. The newest member of the Watch family. This is a Von Doren, and the model is, I don't even remember. It's some weird spelling. But I like the look of it, but the thing that's cool about it, and I don't know if you can even see that, the day window is in Norwegian.
Oh, so awesome.
I really wanted the Norwegian days of the week. And so, hello, everyone. So this is my new mission, to get as many languages of days in the week on a watch that I can. There's actually a Hebrew one, which I thank you, Andy, which I know exists, but I can't find it online anywhere. It's discontinued. eBay doesn't have it. Even Chrono24, which is it's like the eBay of watch sellers. Even they don't have one. So that's going to be a bit of a nice.
That's a challenge. So if anybody's sitting on a watch,
I'm thinking that's Jordan Oakes. That's it. It could be John Borak, but I'm guessing it's Jordan Oakes. That one could.
That one I got a hat off to that
anybody's,
one.
So I've been wearing this one for a while, so let's see what else. There doesn't need to be anything else because we have a couple of special guests. It's been a while since we've had special guests.
Yeah,
and we will have one next week as well.
We've been playing Stump the Bash all this time, and
Stump the Bash,
which will not happen tonight. But it's
no
coming
Stump
again.
the Bash tonight. We're sorry about that, but we want to give full time to our guests. And Stump the Bash takes about 30 minutes. So so we'll table that until another episode. But right now it's my great pleasure. It's our great pleasure to have on Material Issues two people who have definitely forged an extremely strong identity in this here record biz. We've known them since 2016 when we first met them at IPO San Diego. Since then, they their band, the Armoires, played that one, and the band has flourished. And since then, they have started a label called Big Stir Records, which is now, one could argue the strongest pop force in our community, and hopefully beyond our community. And they're certainly working hard enough to spread this word out beyond the cognoscenti. And we hope that this music gets into the hearts and minds of the mainstream, because they have released some incredible albums and compilations. They've also, pre-COVID, they were doing monthly shows, Big Stir afternoons, and hopefully that will resume once everyone is comfortable. But they have done great. I am really, really proud of them, as are many other people in this community. So we're very, very glad to have them. Would you please give a huge welcome to Rex Broome and Christina Bulbenko of Big Stir Records.
And there they kind of are.
Yeah. And before anything else, we need to explain the unorthodox nature of our appearance.
I am here. I had an emergency root canal yesterday, and my face is swollen. So I kind of didn't want anybody to worry about me when they looked at me. So I'm fine. I talk a little funny, and I look a little funny, but temporarily.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is, and the worst part is you're stuck looking at me instead. So I mean, that's rough for everyone.
We weren't going to say that. We were all thinking that, but yeah.
No, Christina. Here's the truth. Christina is way too beautiful to have a camera look at her. The lens would just fog up automatically. So
that's true too.
We can't have that, because we got.
Temporarily, I mean, that's probably I look funny all the time, but
No, you look wonderful. I do have just my little prop. When Christina needs to speak, we will see her face, which is a pretty accurate representation of her.
Hey, who said that?
She's not orange. She's not actually orange. But,
hey, you know what? It just gives us a reason for down the road having Rex and Christina Part 2. After some releases,
I'll be disfigured for that one. So that
we'll even it out. Right.
We'll see if we can get you disfigured, Rex. I was talking to
not far to go.
I was talking to David before the show started about meeting you for the first time at David's wedding. That was the first time I ran into you, because I came out from the East Coast to be there, and no idea. I really had very little idea.
Which wedding, Mark?
That was your third wedding. It was your third wedding. That was the cheap one at the bar because you couldn't afford it anymore.
Explains why we were there.
Yes, you were.
But,
Thank you for being
it was nice. But thanks guys for being on the show this evening, and we've already got a lot of people checking in and watching. So it's a thrill to talk to you tonight. That's great.
So Rex and Christina, we'll just ask you separately. Tell us a little bit about your backgrounds, where you grew up, how you got into music, and we'll ask more specific questions along the way.
Let's have Christina start.
Oh my goodness.
Ladies first. So Rex, no, just kidding. Christina.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, near Dearborn. Born into a family of Ukrainian immigrants. So I'm first generation Ukrainian. I went to a Ukrainian Catholic elementary school and high school. My sister, who is 12 years older than I am, used to play piano, and she was studying to be a concert pianist. And I would dig through her closet and find Beatles books and sheet music that was banned in the house because rock and roll was bad.
Ooh.
And I taught myself, I took lessons. She taught me when I was about 4 how to play piano. And then through that, I got hooked on it and just would go diving for sheet music as often as I can, just to learn how to play and sing anything that was out there. And so I did take piano for about 10 years and did that whole thing on the side with the sheet music. I did some musical theater, got into acting for a while, was in a band.
We just got a Yay Detroit for you there.
Yay!
Not credited.
Was in a couple of bands actually, but the one that we had booked a gig at CBGB and then they broke up. So we never ended up going. It was a sort of a new wave punk band. One of the songwriters was new wave and the other one was punk. And so it was a bit of a blend. That was fun.
There you go. Here we go.
Okay. That's my LinkedIn profile.
That's what I could find. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's.
So and then moved out to. I did some theater in Kansas City. Then moved out to LA, where some friends from Kansas City were doing theater and film and television and commercials, and tried to do that. Ended up as a teacher after I had kids. Ran the after-school program, got my substitute certificate, and then got my teaching degree and taught for Los Angeles United School District for about 5 years. And then was teaching at the Music Academy that is around the corner from me here in Burbank. And that's where I met Rex. And we would work with kids together. And
this was teaching music,
Teaching music. We had summer camp sessions where we would coach bands.
Yeah, you have to picture this as School of Rock as kind of the model there. It's not specifically that because that's a particular company, but you have to picture it. We are coaching kids in rock bands basically together.
And then I heard this jangly guitar down the hallway, and I thought, oh wow, that's really cool. I need to find out who's doing that. And then noticed it was Rex on the 12 string doing either a primitives or a Laws.
Yeah, we've never figured this out. It was either the primitives or the Laws.
It was either the primitives or the Laws.
Both of which were in play.
It's like, that was cool. And then Rex invited me to work with a student that was too nervous to sing. Was it Call Me?
It was definitely Blondie.
Blondie.
And at that point, you and I had talked enough, and I knew that, you were a big Debbie Harry fangirl.
Yeah.
Which made me, I could use that in a band,
So then we realized that we liked the same sort of music, and then we would go to karaoke every Monday. That was also around the other corner. And
we were basically blowing off steam after a rough day at work, singing together. And
then there was somebody that one of the owners of the bar wanted us to be in a Talking Heads tribute group called Talking Sense. So it was going to be all the songs from Stop Making Sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part about this was that he had people kind of lined up, and I was sort of like, yeah, I can do that guitar stuff. I'll be your Jerry Harrison. But he needed a female bass player, and Christina was a very talented keyboard player and singer, but hadn't ever tackled string instruments before. And I was like, well, it's become my job to teach 6-year-olds to play bass. I can probably get you to Tina Weymouth.
And I learned 16 songs on bass.
That's true.
Wow.
Before people left back. So yeah, the guy was completely blown away by how hard we had worked, that he was so intimidated after the first rehearsal that the whole thing fell apart. So okay, so maybe we should just be a coffee house duo. Rex said,
I never said that, by the way.
No.
I just, there's one thing I never wished for the Armoires to appear as, which is NPR sadness music.
No, but he had this tome of, songs he had written and not recorded yet. And I was like, well, let's just work on those, even if it's just the two of us. Hence the coffee duo thing.
Oh, no, I mean, we thought that might be our only option, really. I mean,
right.
If we were, we were a little bit long in the tooth to put together a full band was our feeling at the time.
But then somebody else we worked with at the Music Academy wanted to play bass with us. And my son became our drummer. He's like, Mom, could I can record you guys too. And my daughter joined on the viola, and we hence had a band. We had a 5-piece band, and started to rehearse and record. And
now, of course, Christina's son was only 5 years old at the time. Does she look old enough to have a son to play drums like that? No. I'm just saying.
What made you choose the name of the Armoires?
Well, we had a game that we would play because every time we came up with a name that we thought might fit the band, somebody else had it in some other region, in some other genre.
Yeah.
So,
and unlike in eras past, you can discover this in 2 seconds. Like it used to, it'd be very easy to create a band name that you would then find out that you would have to put UK after it, or
because Simmons. Go ahead.
You literally couldn't know, but now you can. I mean, all you've got to do is come up with an idea for a band name. We'll look it up, and it exists already.
Do you still sometimes get called the Armories? Believe it or not, the first time I saw your name, I'm a little bit dyslexic, so that's what I saw.
Yeah. I mean, and we can't blame anyone for that. I mean, we just like any other perception of what you do artistically, when people see it, and sometimes you could have taken a step to prevent confusion. Sometimes it's just going to happen.
Rex, what about your background?
Well, I'm from West Virginia, and I'm probably, there's not going to be a lot of people. Most people don't know a lot of people from West Virginia and get it confused with actually the state of Virginia. But and I grew up there, and it would be not even accurate to say small town because I grew up in the woods.
Whoa.
I mean, essentially, with no neighbors or peers or anything.
But you were in a house.
Let's clarify that.
Yes, there were. Yes, the house was involved.
I was raised by wolves.
But it feels like that a little bit. I mean, I did. It's a the landscape.
You cried wolf. Get it? No, Wolfman Jack is on this album. There you go.
But it was very, very isolated, and I think I always kind of realized that my relationship with music is really just like I didn't have any older siblings or any neighbors or really any peers. Like by the time I went to school, everyone was already listening to stuff. So I constructed all that stuff on my own, and it's probably why I gravitated towards writing and making music as soon as I was listening to it.
Right. Yeah.
But my dad. My father was in a band, and people always ask this question: "What was your first concert?" And I really have no idea how to answer that question, because my first, second, third, 20th, 70th, 80th concert would have been seeing my dad in my dad's band in what amount to honky tonks and dive bars around West Virginia and Maryland, and it's pretty easy to find. Hey, Gary. It's pretty easy to find pictures of me on stage with a plastic guitar at like age 6.
Let's see one. It'll be adorable.
Actually, I mean, like if you go, spelunking into the depths of my social media profiles, you will find you'll find like me growing up to the point where I'm like legitimately playing bass and lead guitar for the band, which like by the time I was, my dad taught me to play guitar, which took about 3 minutes because my dad's a very talented performer, but he only knew about 3 or 4 chords, and I had to move on from there. I mean, I know that's really deeply embedded in me. Like just some of the corny crap I say on stage is just me going, I don't know what I'm saying, and I'll just grab it from Dad's shtick, from the 70s and 80s, growing up seeing those guys. So. I would say, so this was a kind of a folk country band with a real kind of comedy emphasis. But they were just really, really long lived. They were just a popular performing group. They were called the Thunderhill Singers. You can actually find them thanks to our friends at the Orchard on your streaming services these days, because my dad ran a label called Minko Records, which was almost the name of Big Stir Records because it was kind of neat that we could say since 1963. I had released things under that imprint, for a long time until we formed Big Stir, and that became the thing. But we have sort of done low key digital distribution for my dad's old stuff. But that was a big part of it, of what got me going on in music. All the way up to doing these sort of 50th anniversary shows for the band, which my kid Miranda would play on bass with us at the age of like 12, 13. So you had 3 generations of us on stage, and
that's awesome,
I think that's a big thing. But it is interesting that there was a label portion of it as well, and there was there were things in our family where, like, my first job, for allowance money, was duplicating 8 tracks and then cassettes of my dad's music. They had LPs, and you can still sort of find them too. But 45. A number of 45s in the 60s, and then these LPs that they were selling when I was old enough to be a part of it. And I figured out, the media was changing even then as it does now, and they ended up having people saying, hey, can we get 8 tracks? And I do remember this, and I would remaster them. I basically was taking the LPs and recording them onto an 8-track as a master, and then using that to make other 8 tracks. And people would say, this sounds so much better than the LPs, which is physically impossible. But they could take them into their cars, or their
I'm only going to go off on this tangent because it dovetails with what you said. Are you aware that Mobile Fidelity is involved in a kind of a big scandal right now?
No, I don't.
Mobile Fidelity, for those who don't know, is a company that has done analog remasters of classic albums, and they sound brilliant. Now, I say has done with this little caveat. It was found out recently that many of their remasters did have a digital component in there. So it may have started with an analog master, but there were some digital doings, and that has caused a big scandal by people with people who feel like they've been duped. The whole snobby vinyl community.
They feel like they've been duped.
No pun intended. Thank you.
It caused a big stir.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It did.
They were starting to bang their heads on their armoires and said, "How could I have fallen for that?" No. But here's the kicker. I mean, those are the same people who said, "Man, your remasters sound amazing," and then they found out that they were digitally manipulated, and it's like the whole thing about vinyl sounding better and analog sounding better. It's so the scandal has also brought this sort of subtext of maybe I have to question my own sanity here. Is analog really that much better, or maybe just the way MoFi does it? So anyway, they're going through this right now. It's just happened.
And I was a precursor to it, I guess, with these cassettes and things like that.
Yeah, no, the whole thing of like these sound better, which, as you said, is impossible. But because of the new medium, they figured, well, it's supposed to sound better. So yes, they fooled themselves, just as the MoFi crowd has. Did you have a favorite record store? Were there good record stores in your area?
No record stores.
Or was it Columbia House for you?
Columbia House did bloom large. I'm not going to lie about that.
Oh, me too.
I say I lived in the woods. It was about a 10 to 15 minute drive to town, and there actually was not much in town. And then we would jump. You have to go across the river, drive another 45 minutes into Cumberland, Maryland, to find any place that had things like record stores, movie theaters, and stuff like that. So it was. I mean, the reason I always say that small town is overstating it is because it is. It was pretty isolated. So and then by the time there were places you could go, they were very much the chain stores, that you would see in malls in the 80s. I was born in 1971, so you got to figure. what period this is. So yeah, I was it would have been disc jockey and Camelot music and stuff like that. But being, what I would do is I would be like reading a lot, because you wouldn't be hearing the stuff I was interested in on the radio. I'd be reading a lot of rock journalism and trying to figure out, who was influenced by whom. And I would find, oh, well, this is the record, but they're not going to have that at Camelot, but they had that catalog, that thing. And it was, it was just sort of like big binder with yellow pages and just list after list. And
that thing.
Yeah. That was it.
That was the Schwann catalog or something.
Yeah, until I found, until I started, stumbling onto mail order places, indie mail order places and stuff like that. Basically, which I would discover from the back pages of those magazines. There was a place that would carry American and British kind of underground magazines. You couldn't. That was kind of the funny thing. There was a place where you could get the information on it. The Village Card Shop on Main Street in Kaiser, West Virginia. And you could get Cream and stuff like that there. And then books, I remember that, my first heavy reading was kind of split between, like 60s Lord Beatles stuff and punk and post-punk stuff. I was just really kind of fascinated by, well, Talking Heads comes up again there too. And kind of drawing that history back and front through reading, and then go to the Camelot and order it from the yellow book.
And Christina, did you go to Dearborn Music?
I did. We frequented a lot of different record stores.
I love that place.
Yeah. It was a fun time.
There she is. Thank you, Mark. You really are really helping.
I'm having a good time with that. I'm sorry.
If you're just joining us, Christina is not on screen because of a recent dental surgery, but she's here. So, and Mark's providing a visual reference point.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, Rex.
I wound up in LA. Actually, most of my life I've lived in LA. I've lived in LA for since I was 18. I came out here for school. I've never left. I've raised my kids out here.
Well, you spent some time in France and listened to French college radio.
Like six months, but yeah, I mean, it would be mostly to say, I think it would be, the accent down a naturalized Angelino by,
but
since the 80s.
It's just the coolest thing in the world that we're so fascinated with French college radio, and now every one of our bands pretty much is on French college radio.
Yeah, except for I still want from the station that I actually listened to.
Oh yeah,
a station called We FM in Paris, which is one of the greatest. I made tapes off of that station, and it took me years to figure out what some of the bands were. By re-listening to those tapes and kind of trying to figure out, translate the back announces and collate it and. That kind of stuff is pretty fun. But that process did result in some of my really, really favorite bands too.
We should make it a project.
It should be, yeah. I mean, and that I think we can all kind of relate to. There was a mystery. There was work you had to do to do these deep dives, to discover this great stuff, which is absolutely missing these days. I think that's something that's missed. No matter what you do, whether it has to do with formats or the culture that surrounds it. We did not have the internet, and I think it made us.
It worked really hard. Yeah,
it made you work hard. It made you listen. Made you listen harder. It made you remember.
And you had very special, I think it resulted in a more, I don't want to say deeper relationship, because I don't want to in any way, demean.
I'll say it, deeper.
Well, the reason I don't want to say that is because, I do know kids that are really into music, right. And I think that it's absolutely different. It's absolutely different. But I mean, there were people that were lazy about it back then too. There were people that would just absolutely turn on top 40 and just listen to that. It's just, it's almost more of a mindset but they're definitely, I think we'd all agree that there's really something special about discovering this stuff on your own.
Oh my God, yes, it was.
And the challenge is,
and speaking of discovering stuff, for both of you guys, Christina and Rex, in your teen years, let's say, who were some of your biggest influences, artist-wise, bands, artists?
You want to go first on this one, or?
Oh my gosh, mine was so varied, but of course I had that, Beatles book from my sister. So there was that, and then
if you're just joining us, Christina is referring to the fact that she grew up in a household where rock and roll was a no-go for cultural reasons. So this was.
I found the hidden goods in my sister's closet.
The stash.
And ran with them. So yeah, my gosh, XTC.
Well, those local Detroit punk bands were a big formative thing for you.
There was a huge music scene in Detroit, and I went to high school in Hamtramck, Michigan, and on Hamtramck there was basically, this is a known fact actually, there are more bars per capita in Hamtramck, Michigan than anywhere else in the country. And
in
a lot
Flint,
of
did you say? Yeah.
What's that?
In Flint, you said?
No, Hamtramck.
Oh, in Hamtramck. Okay.
That's where the Romantics are from. I went to high school. I was a freshman, and Walter Palmerchuk's sister, was a senior.
She knows them by the Ukrainian.
Yeah. I mean, there was a huge music scene, very vibrant music scene in Detroit, and in Hamtramck too. There was a club called Lily's, and one of the people I went to high school with, it was owned by their mom. So we kind of got in before we were old enough to get in, and saw some really great bands and a lot of punk bands. So the punk was a huge part of it. I don't know, but I also listened to stuff like, Edith Piaf and French music and the blues. I mean, Detroit was a big blues town too. So I would sneak out and go, it was, I guess, my first year in college, I would sneak out and go to the Soup Kitchen, which is not an actual soup kitchen. It was a bar called the Soup Kitchen, and hear the blues. And I noticed my, my TA, who was from France, his name was Olivier Laverne, on the stand-up bass when I walked in. It wasn't a stand-up bass, it was a wash tub bass. He had a string on a tub and on a stick, and he was playing the bass. Olivier, he said, Christina, it's like, yeah. So, but it seems like everybody I knew, just about everybody I knew, was into music and played music in some way, shape, or form in Detroit. So,
but you had a difficult time, it would seem, then, if you came from a household that frowned on having anything to do with the things you were sneaking around and having things to do with.
Alice Cooper story is the best.
One of my first concerts was Alice Cooper, and I came back with the program. So I had bought the program, and I had it in my room. My mother found it. She brought it into the living room and threw it on the floor and said, "Devil in my house, devil in my house." It was stomping on it. I was like, oh, okay.
Wow. I mean, it's so interesting, the background when we talk to people, whether it's musical or not, and to find out that, Rex, you really had little ways to even find the music, and having to work so hard to find the music, whereas Christina had music kind of all around her, but couldn't let it be and express it.
No pun intended.
No pun intended, but she had to like hide away from it and still love it. And you had to be openly. You had a dad who was playing actively trying to find anything around you, and the two of you get together, coming from such disparate backgrounds as far as music is concerned.
Well, that's just it. They complement each other.
They complement each other.
I mean,
with an E and an I, by the way.
Right, and you need to understand. I mean, I guess like of course, you enter your adult years around college and that sort of thing. And yeah, I moved to LA right away, and you moved to Kansas City, which is also very very culturally open. And
yeah, I loved Kansas City, Missouri. It was very good. Yeah,
and I think around that time,
also
both of the limits on both of us kind of dropped away, and then we would be another 20 some years until we met each other. And by that time we'd had our little musical trips on our own. And I've been in various bands and that sort of thing as well, off and on. And again, I think that by the time we met, we were almost sort of the feeling that, we both had kids, and we were probably not, really had taken our knocks and maybe didn't really feel like there was like a big wide open future for us.
And then we started meeting like-minded musicians and like-minded bands. And
what year is this at this point? You already have the band now. When are we talking?
Well, the band's really only existed since 2014. I mean, and it is a little stunning. I mean, I think people tend to feel like we've been around a lot longer than we have, as the band, as the label. The label itself is just finished. It's just celebrated its 5th year. And, the band having been formed in 2014, that's only 8 years. And really, our first record was 2016. Yeah. The first record was 2016. So yeah, I mean, like this is all later life stuff. For sure. I had, I guess there was sort of like the fading embers of a band that I was in, some of whose members, ended up being in the Armoires as well. Particularly Cliff, who's in the band to this day. And Derek Hanna, who did who was our drummer for a good long time. Those guys had been in, sort of like around the turn of the millennium in a band with me, which,
it was after my son died, when he was 19, we were working on our first album. We didn't know if we were going to continue. It was one of those sort of, what do we do now? But it just felt right. And it felt like it's what he would have wanted, if he was still around, he would have been recording us and playing with us. And
sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Who presently is in the Armoires today?
Well, they're all right here. Okay. And then and so this is Mr. Clifford Ulrich on bass, who, as I was saying, has been in project with me for a good long time.
Love the bass work.
Not as an individual well known to this program, Mr. John Borak on the drums there.
Who's that?
Oh, come on!
I'm kidding, of course. John knows. Yeah, John knows I love him.
Yeah.
You got to give us a second, because we don't get that many opportunities to go.
That's
or
fine.
Who?
Yeah, Borat.
We love John.
Yes, we do. We love John.
And Christina's daughter Larissa, who is our violist. So yeah, I think when it comes down to bands that have a violist as a full-time member, it's pretty much us and the Velvet Underground at the time. So, and interesting. This record I'm holding up right now does start with the John Cale cover. So,
yes, and a very good one, I must say.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Which I guess also, I think a lot of what lies at the core of our influences. I ended up being very much a college rock kid, not exclusively. I think it's tough. Anyone that we talk to on our scene, you can say, well, they mainly do this, but that they have deep loves of other forms and genres and stuff like that too. And that's certainly true of me. But I think one of the reasons why that sort of mid 80s college rock and post-punk scene speaks to what's always spoken to me musically, but it's very diverse. I think that gives a little bit of a sense of what Big Stir is looking to be. It's not just one thing. Because you would talk to people on that scene, and they would be very well aware of the same people who liked the Replacements would also be like into they might like the Pogues. They would like a lot of electronic stuff as well, and it was really and hardcore, from the hardcore punk to very very much the who am I thinking of? Like, sort of, very much acoustic artists as well. And that just all, and everyone sort of, there was a real community feeling to that. And I think, without everyone seeming to be like, have to be doing exactly the same thing. So
please forgive me. Please forgive me, but I've totally forgotten, which I have with many bands. How did we get together? How did we meet? Did I reach out to you? Did you reach out to me? I don't. It's a long time ago.
My neighbor behind me is John Perry.
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
And that is really one of the fundamental things. Yes.
Brought him our. It wasn't a demo, was it? Was it a demo?
Well, it was a disc of those various demos that we had.
Yeah. And I had said to Rex, I said we should play it for John. I think I think he'd like this and would be able to tell us what to do with it. And poor Rex was thinking, oh God, somebody in Burbank is going to listen to our music.
And I was immediately proven wrong. But I mean, I think a lot of us have like particular, somewhat obscure musical ambitions.
But I was dead on with that one because John
I mean, like you expect to be like, hey, here's what I'm doing. And then they'll immediately say, that sounds a little bit like Santana. And then they'll talk to you about Santana for 7 hours. And you're like, that's cool. There's other artists too.
And John was talking about the Loud Family. And I mean, there was so
Stu
many.
And
Yeah. So. And so he hit like every influence on the nose, on the head, and suggested that we contact you about your compilation, which is what we did.
And the festival. Yeah. So I believe that probably was.
That's coming back to me now.
Yeah. And then I think
we actually visited you at your apartment and brought you the CD with the songs on it.
Oh yeah.
Sounds about right. Yes.
You were hoping we could meet Rena then, but she didn't come in at that time, so we hadn't met her until.
Yeah.
Well, we were later to figure out though that because Christina shares this back fence with John, that she, even before I knew her, had been at parties at John's place with Michael Simmons and a lot of the folks that would end up being on the label, and a big part of it. I
met people in the Walker Brigade. I met. I had no idea who they were at the time. But was, spending time there. John would have a party, I think on July 4th and New Year's. And I invited myself, the way I met John was I invited myself over because I heard the music, the live music that was going around. And I was like, oh, live music. I need to be there. I need to play something. I need to be with these people. And I was on my kid's trampoline trying to see who was doing it. Up and down.
Picture a fence, and
great stuff.
And hello. And nobody was hearing me. So I walked around the corner, figured out which house it was, and knocked on the door. And they let me in and let me sit down in this circle of musicians. And I think I played the djembe or the tambourine or the spoons or something. And It was just a blast.
And this is all, years before I actually had met her too. So
this was like 2003 maybe, or 4.
When you were fresh.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was sort of a lot of little threads dangling that us getting our thing going kind of tied together really rapidly, I guess.
Yeah, and one of the things that really impressed me about you guys right off the bat, first time I saw you play was at IPO San Diego.
That would be right, yes.
In 2015, right? Or is it 2016?
I believe so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I loved the band right off the bat, but even more striking to me was how you guys came early, stayed for the whole night, and then came the next day and stayed for the whole night. And I had never seen a band do that in all the years we've done IPO. Maybe some bands would stay the night they were playing, but they would not come back and stay the whole night on a different night. At that point, were you wanting to meet bands for potentially be on a label, or were you just trying to network other shows?
We were not thinking about a label back then at all. We were just, we wanted to see.
We were sort of luxuriating in connecting with like-minded, if that's not a kind of creepy word to use.
I mean,
no,
we were
a great word
to start a scene, or at least, book similar bands to be able to be on the same bill together, because we just didn't want that thing where somebody comes for the half-hour set, pays their $10 and then leaves. We wanted to have an event so that somebody would come at the beginning and stay till the end. And
and we're here in LA, which is
it's pay to play, and
there's what thriving music there is, and this is pre-COVID even is just throttled by the booking policies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we met all these folks via IPO and via starting to connect with people, the airplay that our band was getting and things like that. So it started to go a little bit out of the LA scene.
And we would trade our CDs with each other and listen to each other's music, and eventually we would be on the same bills together.
And I think that part of it too has to do with I'd had this conversation before when I'd been in other bands, and I've talked to other musicians who have gone through these same phases, including some of the folks that have ended up on the label, where we would say, oh my God, okay, you guys get it. You sound good on a bill with us. We should try to make a scene out of this, or we should try to book more shows together. And then it all kind of falls apart. And very few people are able to hold that together for a long period of time. I think two things. And you always have that conversation, and a lot of times you're saying somebody should start a scene. Somebody should put this together, and we ended up in this conversation many times. Particularly,
and I basically said, if there's a vacuum, we need to fill the void.
Yeah, eventually you start to be like, if nobody else is stepping up to be the somebody, then we have no idea how to do this. We know nothing about booking. We know nothing about
getting a venue.
We have nothing about promotion. We know nothing about. We didn't know anything.
Just artists, musicians.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything about any of this.
Rex, Christina, that's how it all starts. Because when I started IPO, the only thing I knew was Tony Perkins was doing Poptopia, and I saw stuff on the surface. But when I decided to do IPO, I knew nothing either. I mean, I didn't know. Yeah, yes. Booking venues, any of it, nothing.
Yeah. And naivety is a bit of a virtue, because we just, it goes on to the point where we have, to be honest, what happened with the label is that we got to a point where we kind of realized, and this largely was, I got to credit some of the people that really started this off was the Living Dolls, Josh Gordon. They were one of the first bands that we had this conversation with, and then when Steven Wilson and Plastic Soul kind of entered the fold, that was a big thing that kind of moved us forward, and we were all basically, and a lot of people still do this, we're all putting out records that were either explicitly self-released, or we all made up one label. Like I was using my dad's Minko records since 1962 at that time, and
and we just realized that we can be stronger together, rather than just self-releasing and be in a vacuum.
And then we had this venue where all these people were coming, and they were getting, it was getting a little bit more tight knit, I guess.
Yeah, and that's how the single series was born too, was because we'd play with all these great bands and artists, and just going ahead and putting out a single by everyone and ending up on a compilation.
It just felt like, there would be, and it was something that Stephen kind of articulated, was that, well, you already have this branding, it is already something that people in Los Angeles know as, the place to go every month to hear this kind of music.
Yeah, Big Stir Live was the scene,
and
for power pop and more.
And if anyone, felt like they didn't need to cling on to their boutique label name, which I let go of mine because I was like, oh yeah, let's just use that. And he was like, no, it's already called Big Stir, dumbass. And that's what the label is going to be called. And of course, Christina came up with that name. Oh, and the answer to the R. Mars question is Christina came up with that name too. Christina names everything. You do, and that's why it's good. And so, I mean, I think that at that point we really got to. Thank you, Facebook user. We love you too.
Aww.
Actually, one person does more for the indie pop scene, and that is Facebook user. Facebook J user is like
right.
it all falls apart without that man or woman or unidentified.
So Big Stir came from Christina, though. And for those just tuning in, Christina is actually to Rex's right over there. You'll hear her. She's not on camera because of a root canal today. So we're doing various representations of Christina. But I wanted to ask, so Big Stir came from Christina?
Yeah, it's a bit of a nod to Big Star, but it's also, the Big Stir where we stir all the bands together, and it's also a to-do. So it just kind of fit what we were trying to go for.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had watched the Big Star documentary, that Nothing Can Hurt Me, we were thinking the band was much on our minds. I think one of the reasons why they're a pretty good avatar for us is that in addition to having really been a game starter for what we would now consider to be power pop, they also did other things, and that we get to that third record and we see a lot of exploration, and it just seemed to really fit. The other thing was straight up that when we were like, let's try to think of something that's a pun on pop, and they were all done. I mean, like everyone's done every last one of them.
Right.
So I think it was probably good that was the case. So we ended up, going to the side and doing a specific, nod to, just so it looks as if the pain is coming back a little bit here.
It's
Are you
okay? I'm fine.
But yeah,
right.
and it was Christina who came up with the stir, and it was because it was meant to be, at the time. The event was like to be a commotion of sorts, and then I guess when it transfers to us being kind of a presence on the scene beyond that, and I guess one of the things that took it from a sort of handshake deal, let's all just put this logo on our different labels, was when it started to become a little bit more international. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was Don Valentine who said, "I want a Big Stir in the UK," and wrote all about what we did.
Yeah. Saying that we were a good, uniter, I guess.
Yeah.
That he didn't feel they had in the UK, and we started to kind of look at that when we were planning the tour that ended up being the launch for the label. Which was in 2017. We were about to release the Plastic Soul record. And again, we didn't know, is this really going to be a thing that we do, or is it just going to be a logo that we can let people use? But we started to find out that there were a lot of British bands in particular.
In the same mindset.
And they didn't know each other, even though they were like really close together.
Yeah,
and
we call that the Venn diagram.
Yes. So and it did. Yeah, I mean, Christina's. I mean, you can't see, but she's.
Yes.
Do you have a Venn diagram on a board for us?
What's that?
You have the Venn
yeah.
diagram on a board for us?
Here we go. Let me just sort of, actually, that's probably the proprietary information there. I pretend you didn't see that. That probably has secret release date information on it. But
Everybody be pausing the video.
Yeah.
The mystery.
That's just
But then they have to figure out my handwriting too.
So Plastic Soul was your first signing. Who was next?
Well, the next thing that we did was the tour
compilation.
The tour compilation. Well, you can find, if you go back through the history, and there's no reason anyone would ever do this, but if you go back through the history of Big Stir shows, you'll eventually run into a show on May 17th of 2017 at CIA in North Hollywood. And it will say Big Stir, and it will say Big Stir as the concert series. And it will say underneath it, it'll say album launch party, because it was the actual album launch for the Plastic Soul record. And beneath that it says tour launch, because the Armoires and Plastic Soul played that show in North Hollywood, got on a plane the next day for a 22 dates in the UK and Ireland. And then below that it says label launch. And it's a very small thing, because it was the one we were the least confident about. We knew we were going to put out this Plastic Soul record. We knew the tour was going to happen. But label launch, yeah. And we made a little, this is probably the rarest Big Stir item ever.
Wait a second. So Big Stir first year compilation was before we were labeled then?
Yeah, that was the celebration of, the first year. That's a Minko Records release.
Right.
Later grandfathered by us. What the second release was, which like on the books is probably, has a release date of the next day, BSR 0002, was a thing called the Big Stir Traveling International Roadshow. And this was something that we took to the UK in pieces. They were CDRs with Sharpied number. Yeah, it says Big Stir Traveling International Roadshow, and one of 50 or however many there were.
Right.
And we brought those and the paperwork, the inlays and that sort of thing with us. And then once we got there, you and Norman had to go looking for jewel cases somewhere in the general Liverpool area.
We spent like 3 hours looking for jewel cases.
And we sat in this Airbnb with Alan Canning, the drummer for drummer for Spy Genius, assembling these things. And they featured 2 songs each, I think, from all the bands that were on that tour, the ones that we were traveling with and the ones that we were that were setting us up for gigs in their hometowns. And that was the second one. And of course, I think the next step was implicit there, because one of those bands was Spy Genius from Canterbury.
They had already released Possible.
We'll be seeing them tomorrow. They're coming to IPO San Francisco.
We just saw them on the way.
They came for a visit.
We had a conversation with them in a parking lot, car park in Canterbury, about the shows that they were doing, and how we were kind of connecting them with bands from other areas in England. And we were like, well, why don't you just call that Big Stir, Big Stir Britannia? You call it Big Stir Britannia, and we'll do Big Stir Burbank. And those will be twin concert series.
Sister
series, exactly. So Canterbury, I guess, actually Croydon,
yeah.
Because they would play in Croydon, which is also the home of Nick Frater, who would also manifest destiny himself onto the Big Stir roster. Mm-hmm. So all those things just kind of connected. And all of a sudden we were an international label. We were representing, and very rapidly, of course, I'm very envious of you going up north. David, because we have so much musical family in that Northern California area too.
Hey, come on up. I'll fit you in.
Oh God! Well, I mean, I wish we had the time to do it. That's the main thing, is just how incredibly busy we are. But I think that kind of, it sort of explosively turned into. There were so many different cities and in different countries as well, where there was sort of a hunger to not only have this community, but to
connect with it
and see, all boats rising with the same tide.
Yeah.
And
stronger together.
Yeah.
And what do you find in today's world? What do you find the biggest challenges facing, a small label like Big Stir? What's that?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what are some of the biggest challenges you face? Obviously, the internet is a wonderful tool to get the word out, but during pandemic, post-pandemic, trying to get past the pandemic type of a thing, where playing live hasn't been that much of a deal the last couple of years, but you've still got the label, you still got product, you still got things to push. What are some challenges that you face from Big Stir's side?
Well, a lot of people have slowed or stopped buying physical products. And that is difficult, because we don't ever want to give up selling physical product. There's something about holding it in your hand and looking at the liner notes and the credits, the artwork, and whatever shape or form it's in. But
let's look at this one. Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a pretty nice one there. From beautiful. Thank you.
Credits and the whole bit. And
we're leaping ahead to our partnership with Spider Pop, which is just a really sweet thing that eventually ended up happening as well. I mean, as sort of the longtime players on the scene warmed up to us, and of course we love everything that they do on that label. It again becomes Venn diagrams, and we're kind of putting them together, and the Spider Pop thing was to look at us and say, that's a pretty good promotional machine you guys have going. And we're like, it's not going to get any less so when you've got Lanny Flowers to add to the mix.
Right, but when you think about major labels shelving releases, the reasons most of the time that they would do that is because they didn't believe the advertising money was worth it. So in order to get your release in front of a whole lot of people and get them excited about it, you have to have a lot of money to spend in advertising so you could keep growing your reach. As an indie label, we're spending all of our money in manufacturing sending out physical promos. And there's really no other way than social media to get the word out there.
And it is just the two of us. I mean, if anyone,
Right. So go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm saying anyone that's watching what you see as the public representation of the label.
It's us.
That's us. I mean, we do all of that work, and we do,
the work of about 5 people.
Yeah, I mean, there's no promo department or accounting department or social media manager. To this day, it's still the two of us.
Yeah,
and there's really no Christina. Rex is just really good at throwing his voice. There's nobody else there.
I wish my voice was as good as hers. I'm privileged to get to sing in harmony with it.
There was a magazine. There was a pop music magazine, which shall go nameless for the moment, who in the mid '90s wanted to create an image that they were bigger than they were. So they actually made up people in particular positions.
Yes, yeah.
When it was just the 2 people.
I mean, and there also is, I think in the beginning, we definitely wanted to, you do want to appear as if you can grow into what you want to be. So
yeah, I mean, there's still hope. Our hopes and dreams are to be able to hire people to work with us and get the word out. But right now, it's like that Wella Balsam commercial. You know, you tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so on and so on and so on. That's pretty much what we're relying on right now. Aside from, you know, sometimes we will advertise in Shindig or Big Takeover, or, you know, we'll do a social media push every once in a while. We did one for Spider Pop Records and Lanning Flowers. We reached about 1.5 million people in Brazil.
I have no idea why she chooses to say something we screwed up. But I mean, there are real challenges. The pandemic increased those challenges.
They did.
And I mean, in terms of final manufacturing, I'm sure you've heard more than one nightmare story about people releases being delayed. We've always had a real feeling that we should make everything at least look like it's on purpose. I mean, we definitely have we want things to look professional. It is mom and pop. She's a mom and I'm pop. But there's no reason it has to look amateurish, right, other than when it's kind of funny for it too, you know, and engaging on that level. We do try to keep a light sense of humor in all of the promo stuff, you know.
I think that's your new tagline, making it look like it's on purpose since 2017.
I've said it many times. And I think in the pandemic, when there were things that you just couldn't predict, you didn't know I mean, it's almost like modern culture on every level right now. You don't know what the hell is going to happen. Yeah. But you know, rather than ever going out there and saying, "Oh no, you know, my dudes, we're on our last legs, we screwed up," it's just like, it could be funny because we're going to get it there. And then we also, you know, especially I think since we've had you know, getting our stuff ready when we got distribution with The Orchard and Sony, that led to a tightening of the ship, which was nearly backbreaking in certain senses, because we had to get our entire catalog like re-manicured. We had to basically redo it all.
Well, it's got all of the metadata attached to every single track. We had to upload, you know, over 1,500 tracks with all of the metadata attached, you know,
with all these new specs for all these different platforms and things like that. Stuff we never thought we'd have to know, you know.
Right.
But you learned it and you did it, and
it's a virtue. It was a virtue to do so.
No, you guys have done an amazing job, and the feedback that you get, the feedback that I get about you is nothing but positive. And and going back to the on purpose thing, I mean, one of the silver linings, if there could be such a thing, of the pandemic is now when things are late, people are very forgiving because they understand that this. Well, look what happened with the IPO CDs this year.
Well,
they arrived 3 days late because they got stuck in customs. And
now imagine you're doing one of those every 3 weeks.
No, I know. Believe me.
And also, you know, we do Christina does the fulfillment for that, and we've also got to get them early, get them out to the promotional copies out. And we've also got to get them 2 months ahead of time to Sony's warehouse. The times it got tighter, it got more challenging. We rose to it, and it was a good thing. It meant that we could see one of those types of delays coming down, you know, Burbank Boulevard, and know that we were going to have to, we started to learn how to architecturalize those things. And it can be actually frustrating for artists because you'll say, yeah, they're telling you that you're going to get that LP, you know,
in 4 months, 6 months,
but trust us,
it's 8 to a year.
You're not. And we don't want to do that thing where we're apologizing for the fact that the CD's ready or the digital's out, but then the CD's not. And pardon me, I have to hang up on someone. I'm sure.
Mr. Likely will call back.
Yeah, Scam. Yeah, but that's a great band though. Scam Likely and the Robocalls. They're pretty good.
Nice. Well, we have to wind things up, unfortunately. We'll certainly have you back. But before we go, the last question that I want to ask, and I'm sure Mark has one too, but what's next for Big Stir? What I know you guys are. You guys never like to reveal things before their time, but we'll just ask and see what we get.
We haven't done enough talking, and I always regret this in interviews like this that are big picture things. We haven't done enough talking about the actual, artists and the music, which is what
that's why we're going to have you back.
So thank you for that. Well, we can talk about what's actually on the schedule and announced. I mean, first of all, I guess I can just. I'm not wearing paisley because it's too hot, but right now will be just a record that we. Oh God, do we have to sit on this one after so long to get the vinyl done? And without people even knowing the band was signed to the label. Someone's Got to Listen by Maple Mars. I think Christina actually is going to grab it. There's a vinyl there that's out on vinyl, that's out on CD, that's out digitally. And we do have a copy on our way here too. And great to see you at the release party for that too, David.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really a lot of fun. We went to more live gigs during that couple of weeks than we have for 2 years. Go figure. Coming out, I sometimes get a little bit lost in time because I'm working on stuff that's scheduled so far in advance. But here we go.
Yeah.
Oh. We'll do a little show and tell, but this is the record we were just talking about here. Yeah. Really incredibly proud of this record.
Yeah, it's really good.
Here's something that actually, I mean, I think it was deemed as it would be thought of as and you guys are both, John Borax has assembled this wonderful thing called "We All Shine On." Number of the bands that work with Big Stir and with Spider Pop. Doing everything these are all covers of songs from the year 1970.
Wonderful.
I'm sure this is not going to surprise anyone, but it is one of these cases where the vinyl has taken a little while to get taken care of, but there's going to be some various things that make this worthwhile. Lanny Flower, Flavor of the Month. This came out on CD very early this year. Not only is it a beautiful package, like everything Spider Pop does, if you look right here, you'll see there's an exclusive CD that is the original versions that is not even going to get digital distribution. So your only way you can actually get those versions of those tracks will be to get this record right here. Coming out Friday. And we did mention Nick Frater. This will be, I believe, is the third official. There have been a lot of other things that we've done. Mr. Frater, Nick Frater does a lot of stuff with us that kind of is a little bit like
the most prolific artist these days. It's amazing.
Well, he's not the most prolific artist, but certainly the most prolific artist with consistently amazing, results, I would say. It's a record called Aerodrome Motel. If you follow us on social media, you'll see that we will not let a review or an instance of marquee airplay go. So we don't have to tell you how good it is. You just kind of go down there and you'll see who's been reviewing and rave after rave on these records. We're happy to have gotten them to the place.
They're all on Big Stir Records Facebook page, Instagram.
Spy Genius Starbernal on tour in the UK, or they're always in the UK, on tour in the US for one more date, which David will be present for. But yeah, from England, and I believe this is the third new release on the label from the band, and then we take one of our very first sort of reissues or first American issues. That's 4 records that these guys have done. Walker Brigade. This is another Los Angeles band who were actually on a Grammy ballot 2 years ago.
And submitted again this year.
And I think, this was another one that we've been waiting a long time for, but this is a new band with some familiar faces. This is a band called Crossword Smiles. This
I think
is
I need the vinyl on that. Okay, good. Good to know.
yeah. This is there, and it's a sort of a limited edition, but it's really, really nice. This is Tom Curlis and Chip Soms. So if we want to talk back more about Christina's regional roots,
Yay, Detroit.
she didn't know these guys back then. Obviously, these with the Hangabouts and Tom Curlis and Your Gracious Host and his solo career. These are folks that have they're going to do something really great. But this particular project is something pretty different for both of them too, which I think a lot of people are going to be really excited. I love it. I can't, it's not like I'm going to say that I don't love something that we're putting out.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But it was definitely a thing where, they approached us and we listened to that and we were like, and they kind of told us what they had in mind that was a little bit different from their other work.
Right.
And I was like, that is so in our wheelhouse. That is so where Big Stir wants to be. I'll sneak one more in. This will be actual pseudo exclusive, although it was also a kind of inevitable thing. Because I posted a picture of us behind a screen doing a video shoot, and I said it wasn't for an Armoire song. It's because we're guest artists on an album and then keeping it all over the place geographically. Ohio's Librarians with Hickeys. We put out their debut record, which is one of those sort of real coups. We were really excited about that, and their second record is what we're going to.
I've known Ray Carmen since the early '90s when he was putting out solo cassettes. What a talent!
Unboxing.
Oh wait, it's an unboxing video.
Yeah.
We got an exclusive unboxing video.
Yeah.
I'll be right over.
Then you'll see Christina. That's not wow. That's not legal.
Whoa.
Oh wow!
Librarians with Hickeys.
Handclaps and
Look at that.
Yeah.
What a great cover too. Great cover.
Yeah, and that's what Mike Crooker does all their design work too. But another thing is just the design work that people in our community and associated with these bands do is just we're always just
and everything can be found. We're scrolling along the bottom, bigstirrecords.com, which will probably also lead everybody to your Facebook page or anything else. But bigstirrecords.com. So if you're checking it out, if you're new to Rex and Christina and everything Big Stir wise, head over to the website. You can find everything there.
And I should also, amplify that it's everywhere. And we're really, really proud of that fact. The website that you just mentioned, that will get the most money directly to us and to the artists.
Right.
But you can also find everything that we do on
Bandcamp.
A lot of people love that. Every major retailer, and we're in record stores in the U.S. and North America.
We're in the catalog, so they can order all of our products. So if you go to your local record store and say, do you have any Big Stir Records releases? You should get some.
Yeah. And we appreciate that because,
lot.
It is, we're glad to be, it's great to be on Amazon and places like that, because when people are buying Christmas gifts for other people, we're right there. But yes, absolutely. We love the records. We love the independent writers. We love the independent blogs. We love the independent radio shows. We love the independent record stores. So if you want to support your record store and us at the same time, that's a beautiful thing to us, and one of the ways you can do that is just if you're not seeing our releases there, just ask. They're right there. They all get the Orchard Sony catalog. They can get you your vinyl. They can get you your CDs. We're really proud of that.
Guys, keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic. Coming from a small record label myself over the years, I'm just thrilled to see you guys doing what you're doing, and
we're really proud of you too.
Let's also just say that if anyone thinks there's rivalry or infighting in between the labels in this community, obviously we're partners. with Spider Pop. We've done innumerable things with Future Man Records, because the two guys that make up Crossword Smiles also recorded on their own and with their own bands for Future Man. We love that. We can't say enough about people. You guys have known Ray from Cool Cat for years. We've all known. There's Wally with the beautiful music. I'm going to forget someone, and it's going to be terrible. But and then there's the folks like the Red on Reds and the Rum Bars and these other folks that have kind of come on. Yeah, we can't put it all out.
No, we can't.
And it just is delightful to see those communities too, and to understand that we're all part of one community.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Fantastic.
We really want to thank both of
you guys, and we will have you back on. We just haven't even scratched the surface of talking about all the artists and whatnot. But that just gives us an excuse for a couple months from now to do this.
And again, I will grievously wound myself next time.
Stop.
So you can do Christina instead of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. That's what drones are for.
Hold on, here we go. Wait. There's an actual part of Christina.
Oh, there she is. All right.
It's real.
There she is.
Well, thank you both very, very much for appearing. We had a lot of fun.
Thank you for
we're very proud of you. And yes, keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate it.
I don't think we have any choice.
Healthy. Feel better, Christina. Feel better.
Yes, please feel better soon, Christina.
All right.
We'll
guys, have a great night.
You too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Safe travels, David.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Rex.
Well, there you have it, David. Episode number 65 of Material Issues with two fantastic guests in Rex and Christina Bigster.
They really were. And sorry, Christina couldn't appear visually, but we did have the pictures, and we'll have them back.
Sure. Yeah.
And now that I look at the time, this show went an hour and 21 minutes, and our last few have gone well over as well. Sure. What do you think about officially making it an hour and a half?
I'm absolutely fine with that, as long as Lisa still loves your shirts.
I think we should do that. We never really announce when it's going to end. I always when I make the announcements, I always just say when it starts. So it's kind of open ended, but we've been trying to keep it in an hour, and it's just kind of had wings, and we've gone an hour and a half.
I think we just let it be organic. It does what it does, and if it goes an hour and a half, it goes an hour and a half. It doesn't. For having
it can always go an hour and a half if you add a stump the bash to
and if you can't stick around for the whole show because you got something to do, don't forget it's archived on Facebook and on materialissues.com on YouTube. You can always check out the shows there as well. What do we got coming up next week, my friend?
All right, well, we've got a couple of guests that we can announce. One is next week on the 24th. It's the infamous rock writer, Mr. John Mendelsohn, who I'm sure will have a lot to say, and we really want to hear it. The other thing about John that people may or may not know is he was in a band in the 70s called Christopher Milk. I don't know how many people remember them, but they had an album on Reprise from, I want to say 72, I think. Very, very odd, very quirky, but very appealing album, in my opinion. I loved it. Didn't sell, unfortunately, but I don't think the world was ready for it. So hopefully he wants to talk a little bit about that, but we'll be talking to him about the things he's written, the things he's working on, the musical projects he's been involved in throughout his whole life. I know he's going to be a great guest. We're very glad to have him.
It'll be a lot of fun.
I want to thank my friend Stacy Alexander, if she's watching, for connecting us in that way. I've known John for a while, but she's the one who said, why don't you have him on? And it's like, yeah, she's right. We should. So we'll have him next week. Then right now I can announce that on September 17th, we will have David Leaf. And I wish I had his book in front of me right here. Let's see where it might be. Hold on one second. I want to grab it because I didn't know I'd be announcing him.
Well, we just found out about him, so we got a couple of guests booked, and we're still working on a lot more. We got irons in the fire, as we always say. Plus, there will be episodes of Stump the Bash coming up. So
Yeah, there you go. This is the updated version of Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys and the California Myth. The original book created quite a stir in the Beach Boys community. People loved it, but it came out years and years ago. This is the updated version, which goes up to, more or less today. And it's coming out. It's out in the UK now, but it's coming out in the US on September 22nd, which is Rena's birthday. So September 21st, we're going to have David on. Yes, for sure. So we're going to, we'll talk about the book. We'll talk about David's association with the Beach Boys. Which you can read about in here, of course, but I highly recommend this. As you can see, I've got my bookmark in it, and I'm loving every second of it. So hopefully you guys will dig it as well. I think you will. So those are the two guests we have to announce now. And as Mark always says, we have irons in the fire. So we'll keep you apprised. And of course, and the weeks we don't have guests, it'll be us, and we'll be fun too.
It's all good. It's all good. And at least we got Gary saying Borak has some great books too.
Yes, he does. Well, we've had John Borak on. Now that is probably John Borak right there, quoting Murray Wilson.
But we've
had John on a few times, and he's talked about his great books. And maybe one day we'll have him on again when he writes his next one. We'll have him back.
It's all good. Well, as I said, we always have things we're working on. We got Stump the Bash coming up. We've had a lot of fun with the trivia going on. So, as always, subscribe here on Facebook, join the group, subscribe over at materialissues.com on YouTube. Tell your friends. We'll let you know what's coming up. Usually on a Monday, we announce Wednesday's show. So we appreciate everybody being here. We have a great time. And that was episode number 65. 65 of these things archived here on Facebook and YouTube. So check them all out. Let your friends know.
Yeah, next week, get your kicks on episode 66.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye,
everybody else who was
episode 66. I love it.
Get your kicks on episode 66 next week.
Have
a great one, everyone. I've got IPO San Francisco over the next few days, so I'll talk a little bit about that next week before we bring Mr. Mendelson on. But everyone, take care, stay safe. We'll see you then.
Good night.
Good night.